This episode is brought to you by Dave, a banking app that's leveling the financial playing field. Because when you download Dave, you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's Extra Cash account. Advance the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. Download Dave today at dave.com/Spotify. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees apply. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC.
Instacart helps you get beer and wine delivered in as fast as an hour. So, whether you need to fill the cooler for tailgate season or fill your glass for Pinot by the fire season, you can save time by getting fall sips delivered in just a few clicks. Visit instacart.com or download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum order $10. Additional terms apply. Must be 21 or over for alcohol delivery where available. Instacart. Add life to cart.
I've been in dogs since 1991. We breed dogs that we want to train. I was out here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't sugarcoat anything, and if you don't like it, tough.
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Elliot, and this is the Flatlander Kennel Podcast with Chris Jobman. I'm the producer here, and we are bringing this to you, and I am with our host again today, Chris Jobman, owner-operator of Flatlander Kennels. How's it going, Chris?
Good, man. How are you doing, Elliot?
I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful.
Well, we're here to talk ducks, dogs, training, whatever you'd like to talk about. Harley, I'd love to talk about Harleys. Can we talk about Harleys? But
yeah, it's not a passion of mine, but you talk about it whenever. Maybe you'll get me into it.
We are going to talk motorcycles. So, but at some point, we're here to talk ducks and dogs and everything in between, and try to have some fun with it.
Right, and a big goal of ours is we want to inform and have fun. Whether you're an amateur or a pro or just getting into it, we are here all things duck dogs from the HRC to the AKC to hunting. We're here to just give you as much information as we can. Today Chris is going to be I have no idea about this topic, so he's going to be teaching me as we go. But it is now, we're recording this in February, and we are running up into spring test schedule, and Chris is just going to kind of hit us with what to do.
Hunting season's winding down for sure, so we're kind of getting cranked up right now. We've had a number of dogs stay with us this winter that Ryan and Julie have been really doing a great job on. I'm coming back to the kennel after my little semi-retirement break this winter hunting, and Andrew's coming back as well, and we're getting ready to get cranking, and we're actually getting ready to leave for our winter trip to Texas here at the end of the month. I leave like on the 28th, and I'll be home after the Grand at the end of April. So we're getting cranking here every day. We're getting ready to go south. The snow is finally melting. It's been a horrible winter here for us. I know we needed the moisture, but next person I hear say that, I'm going to punch him in the face, because the snow was there was a lot of snow this year for us, which we don't usually ever get. But we stayed after it all winter. Dogs got trained. It wasn't the greatest environment for the people outside, but they got it done, and we're ready to roll.
So before we get into this preparing the dogs for the spring hunt test season, why are hunt tests so important for a professional kennel like Flatlander Kennels? Well,
and here's the thing about it is where we live in western Nebraska, it's much different than Arkansas. Down in Arkansas, there is a hunter, a duck hunter, and a dog behind every tree, right? And where we live in western Nebraska, it's not like that. For one, we don't have a ton of trees, and for two, we don't have a ton of people, which is just fine by me, being quite honest with you. So hunt tests are super important for us, is because it helps. I will bet you 75% of my business is hunt test clients, but they're all hunters too, but they're hunt test clients, because if I tried to keep the lights on with just doing local gun dogs, I couldn't do it up here. And I'll be quite honest with you, man. I personally have to have a goal in mind. And so when we get a hunt test dog in, the goal is to make a Grand Hunter Retriever champion master hunter, M&H Hall of Fame dog. That is our goal. And so when we have that goal, that really pushes us to keep going and stuff like that. But the hunt test, it keeps our kennel full, to be quite honest with you, and it gives us some direction on where we're going. Because granted, we got plenty of gun dogs, and we do a great job with gun dogs. Julie and Andrew do a great job with the gun dogs. But I personally I'm goal driven and oriented. I need to be pushed down a path. If I'm not pushed down a path, I'm on my Harley, and I'll see you at the end of the week. So I've got to have a end goal and a job, basically.
And we talked about this in episode 1, but your goal is not to do the breeding. I had always kind of assumed that that's why professionals always did the hunt test, because the farther up the ladder your dog goes as far as master or goes to the grand or whatever, then the pups cost more. But for you, I know that's not true, because you don't put out that many litters. So can you talk a little bit more?
We don't. We only put out 2 or 3 a year, real high-end litters. I do train for friends of mine that are breeders. So we push them that way to buy them puppies, and we get to train them puppies and that sort of thing. So it works out great. But I'll be quite honest with you, man. I'm not a puppy guy. My wife loves them. I am not a puppy person. I can't stand them, to be quite honest with you. They're pretty, they're cute, and they're playful and all that stuff. But I'm not a baby guy either. So when those kids get to be 5, 6 years old, can talk back and run around and run, I'm in on that. But as far as the puppies, I'm not that guy. I like to train a dog. Now, I like to watch the young dogs learn, but when they're 8, 9, 10 weeks old, I'm just not a puppy guy. We don't do a ton of the breeding. We do limited breedings, but they're usually fantastic. We're more of a trainer than anything.
Yeah. And I will say, message to your wife who loves the puppies. Tell her to quit scratching the bellies of the puppies, because once she does that and you get a hold of those puppies, that's all they want you to do. I know.
That's exactly right.
So I saw when we picked up Georgie, she had Georgie arm. She goes, "Oh, I scratch her right here all the time." Well, now she's 4, and that's all she wants is scratching.
Oh, yeah. I think that whole litter is like that. Linda does that. Georgie does that. Flash is in your pocket if you let him be. I mean, and Red, we got Red in the kennel still. He's a great male. He's the same way. It's the craziest thing. That whole litter is like that. It's nuts. Affectionate
dogs.
They are super affectionate.
Yeah, which we like that. But I took out Georgie recently, and I don't do any of my. I'm an amateur, obviously, but I don't do any formal trainings during hunting season at all. Her hunting is her hunting. And I took her out for the first one recently, and she seemed like she had regressed way more than what I expected her to. So I know you guys are about ready to get into your preparation for the spring hunt test. How much do dogs typically regress?
They regress. It all depends. It depends on if you're okay. Like, say you go out hunting with your dog and you've worked all summer on not cheating the bank, right? And running straight and taking the water. If you're a guy that cares more about shooting birds as quickly as possible than the actual joy of the dog work, your dog is going to regress really quick, because all you care about is shooting the next bird, getting the bird back as fast as possible. So when that dog runs down that bank, 2 or 3 birds in a row, you've literally just ruined 6 months of training.
And you let them do it. I had that happen during dove season. She ran, and I caught myself there. So I was like, I didn't stop her. I never would have let her get away with what she did in training.
Yeah, exactly. And my dogs, my personal dogs, and our client dogs that I hunt at our club, I am telling you, I'm a stickler. If I run a blind retrieve and I want them to split 2 decoys, we split those 2 decoys. I call them back. If I may or may not give them a correction, but if I give a right angle, a 20-degree right angle, I want a 20-degree right angle. We work way, way too hard and spend way too much money to worry about the next bird or worry about, because let's face it, in the grand scheme of things, your hunt test season is longer than your hunting season for most people. And people get nervous and they don't want to be quote unquote embarrassed at a hunt test. And so if you're a guy that hunts with rules and makes them be steady and makes them be quiet and makes them take the angle cast and makes them fight the wind and not cheat the bank, you're going to be fine. If you're a guy that all you care about is pulling the trigger, then you're going to struggle. And I feel sorry for that dog because you let that dog get away with murder for 3 months. Now you're going to try to get it back into shape because you got to run a hunt test in March. So it's not great for dogs. Hunting absolutely deteriorates training. It really does. And we try our hardest not to let that happen as much as we possibly can on our dogs that we have here.
I'm trying to get better about it. Now my big thing with her is on her whistle cast, on her blinds. In her first couple seasons in training, she would perform well, but then I would get more refusals out hunting. Now this last season, which is her third season hunting, she was 1,000 times % better on her blinds. But I shoot in small groups. It's like me and maybe one or two other, and we shoot them with our feet down. So we don't have lots of blind. It's like she's missing her reps. She did really well with it, but I was just surprised because when I took her out on the training day, she was worse on her blinds than she was during the hunts, and I was really
that's the first thing that goes. The first thing that goes on these dogs is control, whether it be steadiness or vocalization or blind retrieves. The first thing that goes is control. But where we live, and we hunt the North Platte River, I'll bet you 75% of what we pick up are blind retrieves almost, because the water is moving, so the birds are moving. And how we hunt our dogs in a dog pit next to our blinds. They can't break, they can't get out. They can pop their head out through the basket and look, but it's hard for them to technically, quote unquote, mark the birds too, because we're on a little bit high bank and their birds are floating. Now Flash and some of our dogs that we hunt, and Pearl and them guys, they can mark out of that basket really, really well. But typically a dog has to look for something floating in the river, and they learn how to do that, or you have to run a blind retrieve, because it's not like hunting a rice field where they splash down in 6 inches of water, 8 inches of water, and just go get it laying there. It's a little bit different where we hunt. So for most people, the control aspect of the dog usually really deteriorates big time.
One thing I noticed that I was struggling with is that when I'm training or at a hunt test and we're doing blinds, I'm standing perfectly. I've got everything. I'm all squared up with my body language is all the same. And then at hunting, it's like whether you're hunting out of a boat or a layout boat, it's like I struggle to get into that. I've got a gun maybe slung over my back. I struggle to get myself in the same body language order that we do during a hunt test. And I wonder, I don't know how I can fix that. But.
Well, and you're a guy that loves to pull the trigger and shoot stuff, and I love how you do it with feet down, because I'm the same sort of way. But the biggest thing, you're probably trying to get that bird as quickly as possible and get it back and get going. And you just have to be able to, like, with our club, and we have a lot of members, not a lot of members, but we got some members in our club. But when they first join the club, we have to get out of the blind and send the dog. And I mean, the North Platte River is tough stuff. And the members were like, get in. There's birds coming. I'm like, I don't care. There'll always be more birds coming. Relax. We got to get the dogs are out. We got to get the birds picked up. And if you're rushed doing that, then all those habits come, they start mouthing birds, and they start taking bad lines, and whistle sits turn into be really loopy sits, because you're more worried about picking the bird up as fast as possible, because your buddies are like, here's more birds coming. Where if you hunt with people who appreciate the dog work and understand how much work it takes to get the dog doing what we want them to do, then they'll calm down on that whole deal. Our members are quite calm on that now. Especially I've yelled at them for trying to push me to get birds picked up. But
they know.
They
alpha
know.
Is.
They know. But the biggest thing is you just got to be willing to get out, take your time, and send the dog, and not worry about the next bird coming down the deal. Now, and if you're more worried about the birds, then all the more power to you, because those people keep me in business. So
yeah. Do you think dogs are smart enough, and I think I probably know the answer to this, that they understand when they're hunting there's a different set of expectations than when they're in training?
I think so, for sure. I've seen a lot of dogs, honestly, man, they get more jacked up at a hunt test than they do hunting.
Yeah.
They get way more jacked up at a hunt test than hunting. And I don't know, because they don't have a collar. I always hunt my dogs with a collar and stuff. But and I keep them under control. But man, I tell you what, a lot of dogs are way more excited about hunt tests than they are hunting, because you get them on the road and you get to the hotel and you get out and they see the Holiday Inn Express sign. They're like, oh boy, watch this shit, and they know exactly where they're going. I'm telling you, it is the craziest thing you've ever seen.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. So, as you guys are gearing up for the whole spring hunt test, run us through your thoughts, your philosophies, your order of business. How long does it take you to get them back to where they were from the year previous, and then extending into your goals for them for the year?
It varies from dog to dog. I will talk about Flash. He's kind of the star of the kennel right now. We've got a lot of great dogs in the kennel between the, Flash and both Mavericks and little Indy coming up, and I'm going to leave some dogs out, and please don't, people that listen, don't get mad at me, but we've got some real stars coming in the kennel right now that are going to be phenomenal, and that already are. But Flash is the star. He's the big dog of the kennel, and it doesn't take him long to get back into the swing of things, because I don't let him get away with anything during hunting either.
Right.
So, and some of the more high-powered dogs that go home, and it's just typical. The owners don't want to be mean to them, and then they're buddies, and they've been in training for 6 months, and now they're finally home, and so they take them hunting, and they do a great job for the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hunts, but their control starts dwindling. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then when we finally get them back into training, there are some dogs, man, I've had in my career. Deke was one of them. He was a great dog. I mean, a fantastic dog with a great owner. I mean, everything about him was great, but he was a lot. When I say a lot, scale of 1 to 10, he was a 12. Mm-hmm. And his owner did a great job of controlling that dog during hunting situations for him, but he's not us. So every year we got Deke back, it literally took me 2 months to get his head squared on and screwed on right, and where he'd take a cast into the wind and he wouldn't fade with the wind, and he would not creep and not try to break. It took me 2 months for me to kind of quote unquote crack down on his control, which kind of put him in a little bit of a funk, because he's like, now he's thinking, oh man, I'm in trouble and this isn't fun. And we did it every year for years. And after 2 months, he was great. But it took me a while, and it got better towards the end of his career, because Tom, as owner, would understand what we needed for him to do, and Tom would keep more control on him for me in the hunting season, so it wasn't quite so bad. But when he first went home, his first 1 or 2 hunting seasons, it was really, really tough. It was really tough. But there's always a process, right? We get these dogs back. There's always a process to this thing. Everybody's like, how do you get your dogs ready for hunting? And, after hunting season's over and you're getting ready for test season, what we like to do, and you got to understand something. Most dogs during hunting season aren't in as physically good a shape as the test season, because they're not technically training every day, right? They're not in the heat, and they're not all that stuff. So a lot of those, you see a lot of dogs when they first come back from hunting season, there's a lot of injuries that happen to dogs when they first come back, because people don't understand something. I don't run anymore, and even if I did run, let's just say the last time I ran was 4 months ago, and I took off and sprinted to the mailbox, I would be laid up with a hamstring like somebody shot me with a gun. and that's the same thing what happens to these dogs. They're not in the physical shape that they need to be in, so they go out on a training day, instead of just running some nice singles, letting the dog warm up, running some short ones, some medium ones, some longer ones, back down to short, and just let them kind of knock the rust off with just singles and stuff, and some really simple. If your dog's running blind retrieves, really simple cold blinds, nothing major with big crosswinds or big swims or anything like that. Just some nice simple things, and let your dog get back in the swing of things. And it takes them a month. I'll bet you it takes them a month to get back to mentally and physically ready to.
How do you assess because I have problems with Georgie assessing whether she's in shape or not. I mean, I'm pretty good at knowing whether her weight is and whether I need to, trim back a little bit. But I take her out. She seems to be breathing so hard every training session. How do you assess their?
I think a lot of her probably breathing really hard probably comes from she works herself up.
Right.
It's more of an excited thing than I'm a tired thing. But she also might run a little hot too, where some dogs the heat affects them more than others. But I'll tell you, we live on almost 4,000 feet of elevation. If you want to know if your dog's in shape or not, come and run a setup up here, and they'll be sucking some serious wind, big time.
So if they're really exhausted, you'll start seeing them lay down, right?
Oh yeah, you want to stop before you get to that point.
Right.
Yeah, before you get to that point. And you'll know their tongue will hang out and they get real, real wide and they won't be trying quite as hard. You just need to stop before you get to that, especially this time of year. Man, just let them dogs, because here's the thing. The dog's muscle tone isn't what it should be, and the endurance isn't what it should be. So if you start training dogs, they blow out knees, they pull muscles, they hurt their back, they hurt their elbows. I mean, you would be amazed, especially like if you're starting to say you want to go train in like a mucky, muddy area where it's real sticky mud. These dogs aren't in physical shape to do that yet. And that's why you see a lot of the field trial guys train 12 months of the year. Well, usually they're running trials, but a lot of those dogs are training 12 months a year because they have to be in such great physical shape to do those sort of things. That's what they need to do. Now I'm not talking about running your dog on a treadmill every day for an hour and a half. I'm not talking about four-wheeling it for 5 miles every morning and putting undue stress on a dog's joints or muscles or anything like that. Because I know there's some people out there that like to put their dog on a treadmill for an hour and a half or an hour and think they're training. That's not training. That's just busy work. But I'm not saying doing that. I'm saying let the dog go out and train the dog. Let it fight the factors. Let it climb the hills. Let it run the side hills. Let it do all these things. Fight the wind, and let it just get in physical shape on its own. If you want to do a little extra cardio or something, like let it run around with the four-wheeler for just a little bit, that's fine. But you got to understand something. These dogs also have a shelf life. They're just like, there's only so many miles in their legs and body. And it's just like me and you and everybody else, you can only run so much before stuff starts breaking. So when you first come back from your hunting season, you really need to be very careful of don't let your ego get in the way of what you're training, and you're going to hurt your dog. And just let them kind of come back. Especially they're going to get tired, and they're mentally not going to try as hard. Next thing you know, you're pushing the button on the e-collar, and they're getting in trouble for something. It shouldn't even be a big deal because you pushed them too far.
Right. Yeah. So conditioning is the first step. How much
mental and physical conditioning.
Wait, are you gaming on a Chromebook?
Yep. It's got a high-res 120 hertz display, plus this killer RGB keyboard. And I can access thousands of games anytime, anywhere.
Stop playing.
What?
Get out of here.
Huh?
Yeah, I want you to stop playing and get out of here so I can game on that Chromebook.
Got it.
Discover the ultimate cloud gaming machine, a new kind of Chromebook.
This episode is brought to you by Chevrolet. Now's your chance to support a team with real grit. The Chevy ZR2 family of off-road trucks. The first ever Silverado HD ZR2 joins the all-new Colorado ZR2 and the Silverado ZR2 for a commanding lineup of off-road ready trucks. Equipped to take on anything this season throws their way. Visit Chevy.com to learn more.
Because now they got to come back into training, and there's all these rules that they mentally have to follow, right? There's all these rules. You got to be steady. You got to cast into the wind. So it's not only the physical conditioning, it's the mental conditioning to try to get them back in the swing of things. Because I know you're a teacher, so when you have your Christmas break and you go back to school January 4th or whatever it is, you're mentally not ready for it either.
Right.
So it's the same sort of thing.
Are there things that you specifically do to try to work on that mental training, or is it just that you kind of have a little more understanding if they're not performing up to what they would?
Yeah, as a trainer, you've got to see when the dog is just struggling physically and mentally, and it's not like a disobedience thing, right? It's just the dog is just not giving 100% effort because maybe it's tired, and maybe it's physically tired, mentally tired, and that sort of thing. So you as a trainer have to recognize, hey, the dog is giving me effort. It just can't. We've done too much. Let's just back off. And so what we like to do is, like I said, we do lots of easy singles and easy cold blinds and lots of like obedience. Like we put the holding blinds back up. We come into the holding blind like you're at a hunt test, and we sit on a chair, on a stool, and then we come out, walk to the line under control, start all your obedience stuff again. So the dog, understands, hey, we're back to work, but don't overdo it in the field, because once you start that stuff, you get them out of the trailer or truck and you put them in the holding blind, and then let's just say they creep out in front of you. So you get onto them a little bit for creeping, then you get onto them for trying to maybe break, and then you get onto them for a cast refusal under the wind. Now you have completely mentally fried that dog. So they're not quite in the swing of things, right? So you just go slow and you just ease them into it again. Don't just go out there and hit the accelerator and go, woohoo, let's roll. It doesn't work that way.
I've had lots of conversations with you, several conversations with Freddie King and some other guys. And one thing that I'm realizing that is a big difference between amateurs and professionals is that I think a lot of times, and I'm do this on myself, I'm seeing this, is that when we have an idea, okay, here's what we're going to do in the training today, it's like going through the training without you professionals. You are diagnosing things that us amateurs aren't. You're watching the dog and reading the dog, where I think us amateurs, a lot of times it's like, oh, I did the first drill, I did the second drill. Oh, you did good, you did bad. I maybe give you a little correction. But I think that the difference is you guys are tuned into those things like, oh, wow, mentally, I see they're just not in it. And it's like, it teaches me, like, watch the dog and be thinking more. Don't just like pass fail. It's like really diagnose the dog. Well, those types of things.
Of course. I mean, here's, the whole key to training, is be firm but fair, and understand when the dog is struggling, and understand why is it struggling. Don't your emotions and your ego should never come into play on the dog. You should be reading the dog. That's a whole thing. A great handler and a great trainer, they're not always the same thing. Some are handlers, some are trainers, some are both. But the great handler trainers can read a dog and react to the dog, what the dog is doing before it even does it, and understand why the dog is doing that, right? Instead of just saying, oh, he's just being a butthead today. Very seldom do they come out and say that, right? So something is happening, and there are some that are like that, but you have to read and react the dog, and in training, it's all timing. Everything about it's timing.
Yeah. I think another big difference between your professional and your amateur is that amateurs, and when I say that, I'm putting myself right in there because that's what I am, is sometimes it's easy to get frustrated with a dog to what you want them to be able to do, but you have not put the steps in where it's reasonable how they're behaving based on what you've done as a trainer. I think we see is like, well, this damn dog won't do this, where it's like, no, you have not taken the steps to get your dog to that level. You should be mad at yourself, not your dog.
Well, and that's on, if you listen to episode 1, it's your ego, man. I mean, that's the whole thing. You go to these club training days, and you're watching some of these dogs do this, and you're getting tons of terrible advice from 10 different members, and so you try to, your ego, well, instead of just running the triple, running it as singles and maybe an easy blind at the middle, everybody wants to run a triple, a diversion bird, and a blind. Well, the dog just got done hunting. What are you doing? Right. Well, that's what everybody else is doing. Who cares? Train the dog in front of you. And don't train somebody else. Train the dog in front of you, reading and react what the dog needs. And if you need to back up, back up. Because I'm going to tell you, if you go too fast, too forward, you are in big trouble. But so just, basically just train the dog in front of you, and I don't care what your buddy's doing. I don't care what the other club's doing. I don't care do what you think is right by the dog, and just train. Read what the dog is telling you and train it.
Yeah, and I don't know whether this was advice I got from you. I can't remember where I got it, but one thing I was doing is I was challenging Georgie too much. Well, she's doing great at this. Let's see if she can do this. So we'd be ending our sessions with fails because and that's part ego too, or I don't know, but that was causing me a lot of problems.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because I can go on and on and on and on about this. Here's the thing: you just train your dog. Don't try to win the training session. Don't ever try to win, because there's always somebody better. And and here's the thing: nobody cares. The only thing that we care about is if, like, say, the dog is confused, and the amateur, and I've seen a ton of pros do this, is if the dog is confused, they just start pushing buttons and they get mad and they go out there and then it all goes to hell. It all goes to hell. Well, you should have stopped way before that, before you got frustrated and angry and it all went out of control. You should have stopped way before that, checked your ego. You never would have had this problem. A good friend of mine, his whole philosophy in life is if it's not a problem, don't make it a problem. And there's a lot of truth to that. It's don't make it a problem, and you won't have that problem. So that's his whole philosophy to his whole life. He'll listen to it. He'll like it.
Have you ever found yourself, through all of your years of this, have you ever found yourself maybe emotionally not handling it properly, whether you're getting a little too angry? And if so, how did you learn to keep yourself in check and have the same temperament that you want to have?
Well, it's funny because like on the previous podcast, episode 1, we talked about, hey, when you first start out training, you're actually really, really easy on them. You're light on them. And then then they don't perform very well. Then you're under the pressure to perform. So then you're a little bit too hard on them, and they're more robotic than you want, right? You don't want a robot. You want my big, huge philosophy, and I talked about it in the episode 1, and I should have brought that up, is I want to build, our biggest thing at this kennel is I want a thinking dog. I want a dog that can think through trouble, get lost, figure it out. I want a dog that can think through their entire setup, their whole life. I don't want a robot. Now, when we run a blind retrieve, I blow the whistle, I tell you where to go. That's where I want you to go. But you see a lot of these dogs that run these big-ass technical blinds that we got. A lot of them will think their way through the blind. And if you just let them think, and they react, you react, and let them think, that's what we want. We want a thinking dog. And that's the biggest thing. And if you don't ever let them think, then you don't even know how good they can be, because you're such a control freak, not you, but people in general are such control freaks that they don't ever let the dog be a dog and let them think.
And does that normally show up with overuse of an e-collar?
And or whistle, and or whistle recall and rescind, that sort of thing. There's a lot of things that you can do to make them really, really robotic and take their speed and want to out of it. You can stop them, recall them, rescind. You can hit them with a collar every bad move they ever make instead of teaching them the right way to do it. There's a lot of trainers out there that I'm a firm believer in, let's teach them the right way to do it. And then there's other trainers out there that are like, they teach them what not to do. And what that means is if they do something wrong, they get onto them, recall them, do it again, do something wrong, recall them, do it again. I'm more of a, let's teach them the right way. And once they understand the right way, then if they mess it up, let's correct on that because they know better. Instead of, teaching them what not to do, I want to teach them what to do, if that makes sense.
And how I'm trying for that to make sense.
And see, and I just rambled right there. And so back to your point is, how do you check your ego and your emotions? And I used to get pretty upset when I was younger because I wanted to do well, and I wanted the client to be happy, and I wanted to perform well, and I wanted to do all those things. And I guess patience comes with age and experience, to be quite honest with you. You've been there, you've done that, you've seen it, it's going to be fine, not a big deal, we'll get them tomorrow, that sort of thing. Now, trust me, I still get upset and that sort of thing, but very, very, very rarely do I let it affect what I'm doing in the field. And the problem with some people, pros and amateurs alike, I've seen a lot of pros that have, let's just say they're running the Master National or the Grand, and they've got 15 dogs to run. And let's just say that the third dog doesn't do very well and the fourth dog doesn't do very well. They mentally can't come back from that. Mm-hmm. So their whole truck literally just gets ate up because the handler can't control their emotions and stop the bleeding. They take what dog number 2 did bad, now dog number 3 did bad. They can't quit. They can't, forget about dog 2 and 3 and go to 4 and do a great job on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They still thinking about dog 2 and 3.
Right.
And so that just eats them up. And so I guess just, I think a lot of the patience and stuff, there's just some people that are good with animals and they're patient, and there's just some people that aren't. And I'm way more patient with an animal than I am a person. I can tell you that.
That's funny.
But,
yeah. Now, with the trainer, you mentioned the scenario that you talked about with the trainer getting off track. Do you think a lot of that is a body language issue? Because I'm learning that dogs pick up every single little thing about your body language. Do you think a lot of that has to do with body language or impatience?
You mean the dog reading the handler?
Right. So if the dog 2, let's say, fails and the handler's really frustrated, and dog 3 comes out and he's still in that frustrated mode where the dog's reading the body language and then reacting to it,
they read you. That's how dogs communicate, is body language. That's how they totally 100% communicate. And if we have a barking dog outside and I go running outside and they're like, oh boy, here he comes. We done it now. They know when I'm upset and they know when I'm happy. And dogs, if you've had a bad day at work and you're not in a good place, dogs go 100% read that. You know what? Just take the night off, buddy, and just do it again tomorrow, because nothing good's going to come out of that. I've gotten frustrated to the point, hasn't happened in a long time, but I got so frustrated a few times training. I got to the point where I was halfway through the string of my dogs. I said, you know what, guys, I'm done for the day. Yeah. I'm done. I'm just going to make mistake after mistake after mistake. Tomorrow will be a better day. Whether it be the chaos of my life overtook me, or the dogs are just doing a very good job that day, or I had a terrible setup design, just something was not right. And I just said, you know what, I'm done. I'm done for the day. They're like, what? I'm like, I'm done. Because anything from here on out isn't going to be good, and they don't deserve that, for one. And for two, I don't want to fix it. And once you screw something up, you spend a week or two fixing stuff. Once again, it's not a problem. If it's not a problem, don't let it be a problem. So, stop while you're ahead.
Do you have any hot button issue with dogs? Like, what is the most annoying thing that a dog can do to get at you?
I can't stand barking. I can't believe you haven't heard our corgis on this podcast yet, but I can't stand barking. And it's just, there's no reason to it. Unless they got to go to the bathroom or something, I can't stand it. But in the field, one of my biggest issues, and I've said this in a bunch of my seminars that I've done, and everybody that's been to my seminar can tell you this. I always say, if you don't have sit, you don't have shit. Mm-hmm. And when I blow a whistle, I want that dog to sit down. If you watch our dogs running the hunt test, our dogs sit immediately. Mm-hmm. And that is one of my biggest sticklers is the dog's got to sit down when I blow that whistle. These big loopy sits, you can't run a good blind, especially when you get to the national levels of stuff. You can't run a good blind, and you're going to fail almost all of them because your dog won't sit down. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. My other one is a dog who, when they get mentally stressed, and this is a very hard one to figure out for a lot of people, but when a dog gets mentally stressed, there are some dogs that just quit marking and they just run dead straight. That is their out. They just want to run dead straight and not mark. You can throw a 50-yard mark, and if they're super stressed out, they just run 300 yards dead straight. And that's a very hard one to deal with, because then you get frustrated, and 9 times out of 10, the person doesn't realize what's happening, and you add more pressure to the situation. Then the dog runs even faster, even more straight. When honestly, you should back off the pressure, make it easy, make it happy, make the dog be happy again, make it more comfortable, more confident, and then you don't have that problem. But usually people are like, I'm going to fix that with pressure. Well, no, you're not. You're going to make it worse. Yeah. So that's one of my biggest pet peeves is that when a dog does that. But when they do that, I don't even get into them. I don't even get on them. have the helper help, hey, and let the dog work itself out. And usually it works itself out in the wash. If you add pressure to that situation, you just threw gas on a huge fire, and it's going to be even worse. Right. But and then one of my biggest things ever is my wife will tell you this, my kids will tell you this, my employees will tell you this, is I cannot stand lack of effort. It drives me insane. And if I'm out there giving 100%, they better be giving 100%. And I know that's not how dogs think, but I can't stand lack of effort. You know, it's just like the 5-star college football player that went to practice and he just gives up because he's not the big dog on the campus no more. Mm-hmm. When in all reality, they have all the talent in the world. They just don't want to give any effort. And lack of effort just drives me insane. Because
now, can you describe an example of how you would what you would identify as lack of effort? Like they're just not running as fast as normal, or
no? It has nothing to do with speed. It just has everything to do with effort. Let's just say like you're running a blind retrieve, right? And it's a crosswind blind retrieve. It's right to left crosswind, and you know your dog can hold that wind and run a straight line, and it just starts fading with the wind. And now I'm not talking about a young seasoned dog that doesn't know any better. I'm talking about a grand level, master national level dog. That dog just starts fading left. And you've taught that so that you stop that dog and you cast into the wind and it goes 4 or 5 feet and just dives with the wind again. They're not putting the effort in to fight that factor. Mm-hmm. Right? They're not putting the effort in to fight that factor. Or if you're running marks, and you know that dog is out there, and it's hunting for a bird, and it just pops. Like, I don't know where it's at. Help me out. You know, you see that a lot coming out of the hunting season because a lot of times people don't let their dogs hunt for their birds. They want to handle their dog, put their dog on the bird, so they can get the bird back as fast as possible, right? Mm-hmm. So they can shoot the next bird. Well, in reality, you should let that dog hunt for the bird. So now when you come back after hunting season, dogs are popping on marks. And you know they're looking for direction, and after a while I get that at the beginning of the year I understand that, but 2 to 3 months into this thing, when a dog is hunting for a mark and just stops and gives up, like I don't know where it's at. It must have moved. That drives me insane. And go back to the pressure thing. Pressure usually doesn't fix that stuff. Usually it can, but it usually doesn't. But there's a lot of different ways to. Lack of effort. I mean, I've seen dogs that don't even want to look at the marks. They're like, I'm not feeling it today, and let's just put me back in the trailer. I'm done.
And I assume that some personalities are just more prone to have off days like that.
Yeah, for sure. They're just like human beings. They're just, some dogs, like the Flashes of the world, they get out of the trailer every day and give 110% on everything they do. And there's other ones that just don't. And as a trainer, you got to understand they're not human beings, and you can't really impose your will on them, right? You've got to pull the choke, pump the gas, figure out what makes that dog tick. That dog isn't Georgie, and that dog isn't Flash. So let's figure out what makes that dog tick and give us effort with the least amount of pressure as possible.
Yeah, I think I'm more blessed with Georgie than I ever even realized. I've never had a dog like a Flatlander Kennels dog. I've never had a dog that you would consider with really good breeding, and she just doesn't have off days. I mean, every time she does something wrong, I'm pretty sure it's me, but it's like her attitude, her desire, her will to do what I want is always the same. And the strange thing about her so far, people have always told me, you get in these hunt tests, the dogs will perform about 60% in hunt tests. She seems to be better with more pressure. Like those environments, she seems better than when we train and no one's around. It's just blown my mind.
Give it time, it'll go away.
I'll see those days.
You're getting ready to run finish and masters, so it's a little different. It's all going to get harder, but she is I watch videos of her. She is unbelievably talented. That whole litter was like that. It's insanity, honestly. But and we got some really good ones. Georgie's going to be 4. We have Red. Her brother's here. He's a super nice dog. He's an HRCH master hunter with a Master National Pass. He went out in the 4th series, I think, of this last Grand, and that was his first Grand. He just matured a little bit slower. A friend of ours has got her sister, Linda, who's phenomenal. And that whole litter turned out great, and we have a bunch of younger ones coming up, that the Mavericks of the world, or the Indies of the world, and the Louis, and a lot of really young dogs, like, the Nova. Nova's a real young dog. That's one of our puppies that's coming up. That's going to be fantastic. And Granger, the Grangers of the world. Granger is Nova's brother, who was a ticket Dakota breeding we had, and they're just now turning 2 not too long ago, and they're phenomenal young dogs. So we have our young dog program is really good, and we're super excited about some of these young stars that we've got coming up in the kennel right now, because I tell you, if the owners stay at it, the sky is a limit. And I honestly, with Georgie, if in the right hands, I have zero doubt she could be a Grand Hunter Retriever champion, M&H.
Right. Yeah.
Zero doubt.
Yeah. This hunt test thing, I started it because I wanted to prove to myself. Well, you said something to me a long time ago when we had talked about kind of partnering together. You're like, well, how do I know that you're going to get this dog and you're not going to have any idea what you're going to do? The dog's going to be, and I'll basically ruin the dog. And so my goal is like, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to prove to myself and to Chris that I can do at least an adequate job enough to be respectable.
Oh,
and
you've done a great job with her. I can't tell you how many people have called me and said, hey, I listened to Elliot's podcast and I saw his YouTube videos, and that Georgie dog is unbelievable. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had that call.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. Once this is the first off season, so I got through season last year, and she titled in season, and now it's like I didn't know how much I'd like it. As we get closer to it, I'm really getting excited. Like it's really fun.
Oh, it's a whole
fun.
Nother hunting season almost.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of ups and downs. It's a roller coaster for sure.
And guys, that you're listening, we're going to go through all this. We're going to have a time where we just talk about the HRC, AKC. We're going to geek out on all of this stuff. Because one thing I struggled to get caught up on is like, what even is this? And how do I act as a handler? Which was a huge learning curve. It's just like, what is expected of me? And we're just going to geek out on this stuff over a bunch of these episodes. So, and again, we've got a Facebook group called the Flatlander Kennel Podcast with Chris Jobman. Go over there and join. Ask questions, get into the conversation. What kind of content do you want from us? What do you want to hear from Chris? And make sure and give us a rating as well.
Yeah,
is there anything else?
Yeah, here's the thing. This is, there's not a lot of dog trainers that are doing this podcast, so I'm kind of excited about doing it. And this is everybody else's podcast. I mean, it could be the Chris Jobman podcast. I get it. But this is everybody else's podcast. So if you guys want to hear about something, we will do our best to bring this up on the podcast, because it gives it, let's just face it, it just gives us content, and we need really good content, and we don't know what the heartbeat of the world is, because I'm stuck here in western Nebraska riding Harleys and training dogs. I don't really care what anybody else is doing. So if you guys want to hear about, how to do this, or how to de-cheat, or how to do this, just ask a question on the Facebook page, and I'll do everything in my power to answer that right. And there might be some videos down the road. I mean, this is good. We'll see where this leads, but I think this could be a really good resource for a lot of people.
Yeah, I do too. We have partnered up on this, but like Chris said, we're going to, whatever direction you guys want us to take this is the direction we're going to go. So get over there.
And trust me, I hope everybody has their big boy pants on, because I don't hold back punches and I don't sugarcoat anything. So if you want an answer to your question, I'm going to give you the answer. And if you don't like it, tough. That's the answer. We're all grown adults, most of us. I'm really not, but you're going to get the answer. So it may not be what you want to hear, but that's what you're going to get.
Well, is there anything else that you want to cover before we sign off on this thing?
And not really. I think the biggest thing right now is when people listen to this podcast in March, they're going to be starting their hunt test season, and they're starting to train a lot and everything like that. Here's the thing, guys out there and ladies, is be fair to the dogs. Use your head. Think about what's going on before you react. Why is a dog doing that before you react? And just use your head and take it easier on the dogs right now, especially when it's starting to get warm down south right now. Heat's a major deal. But just, use your head, let the dog get out of hunting season, let it build its mental toughness and its conditioning again, and then just get after it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This has been episode 2. Be ready. We're going to have an episode out about every other week, so be ready for them as they come.
All right, guys. Thanks for joining us, and thank you, Elliot. I'll see everybody at the line, and take dead aim.